Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. OpenTofu, OpenTofu, OpenTofu. There are n number of requests on the channel asking me to make a video on OpenTofu. And majority of those requests were asking about the same thing. What exactly is OpenTofu? In today's video, let's learn what is OpenTofu, why OpenTofu. I'll also do a comparison of Terraform with OpenTofu. And finally, you will learn how to use OpenTofu to create a resource on AWS. So we will also do a short demonstration in today's video. This is going to be quite interesting and I will try to keep it as short as possible. So make sure you watch it till the end. First things first, why OpenTofu? When Terraform as a project is doing super good with respect to infrastructure as code, why a project like OpenTofu came into existence? So if you haven't followed, HashiCorp changed the license of Terraform to BSL. So Terraform used to be an open source project. Anyone can use Terraform. Even anyone can offer Terraform as part of their managed services. But this licensing change of Terraform makes Terraform a closed source project or not an open source project. It's better to call that. But is everyone impacted because of this licensing change? Answer is no. Only companies that offer Terraform as a service or companies that provide Terraform as part of their commercial offering cannot do it any longer because of this BSL licensing change. Best example is TerraGrunt. But Abhishek, if I am using Terraform in XYZ company, so I'm working as a DevOps engineer in XYZ company, and I use Terraform to create infrastructure on the cloud platform. Am I also impacted because of this licensing change? Short answer is no. So you are not impacted because you are using Terraform only for your internal purpose. As long as you use Terraform to create your dev, stage, even your production important environment, you are not impacted. Only if your company XYZ decides to sell Terraform as a service to your clients, to your customers, then you're impacted because of this licensing change. As I told you, TerraGrunt, BA, Envo, these are some of the examples. To make it even simple for you, if you're not very much aware of managed services concept, let me take a very simple example. AWS. AWS offers many open source projects as managed services. Kubernetes is the best example. So Kubernetes is a popular open source project. You can create bunch of virtual machines and you can download the Kubernetes binary and you can actually create a Kubernetes cluster. However, AWS offers Kubernetes as a managed service through their EKS solution to make the installation and configuration of Kubernetes easy for their customers. In the same way, if AWS was offering Terraform as a service, this licensing change does not allow AWS to do it. Of course, at this point, AWS does not offer Terraform like Kubernetes, but if they were doing it, just like how they do EKS, just like how they do Redis, Valkey, if they were doing Terraform, this licensing change would have restricted them. I hope you understood what exactly is the licensing change from HashiCorp. But why did OpenTofu come into existence? So OpenTofu came into existence because people who were impacted by this licensing change or people who did not like this licensing change and also companies created a public or open source fork of Terraform. If I remember it right, this licensing change happened during 1.5 version of Terraform. So during this time, or from this particular tag, open source fork was created, and this was called as OpenTofu. Now, any open source contributor, people who are interested, can contribute to OpenTofu. Companies like TerraGrunt, Envo also started contributing to OpenTofu, and they added features to OpenTofu which were long pending in Terraform. Best example is state encryption. So if you look at GitHub repository of Terraform, I think multiple people have requested for it. It has a lot of upvotes to provide state encryption so that information in the state file is no longer sensitive. However, Terraform or HashiCorp did not implement this change. It was not even prioritized. But when OpenTofu came into existence, I think this was one of the major features that the OpenTofu community added to the project. So this way, because it is open source, because it is backed up by companies, and there are a lot of open source contributors, adding features to OpenTofu has become very simple. So this is the difference between Terraform and OpenTofu. However, this does not mean you need to move away from Terraform to OpenTofu. I will get to that point, but before that, let's see how to install OpenTofu, how to use OpenTofu, and also I'll show you how you can use your existing Terraform files with OpenTofu or Tofu CLI to create resources on AWS. Yes, this is the best part of OpenTofu. So they have maintained the CLI compatibility, they have maintained the API compatibility, and also provider compatibility to good extent. That means you can use your existing HCL files with OpenTofu. Installation of OpenTofu is very simple. So you just need to select your operating system. I'm using Mac, so I'll just update brew and I will run brew install OpenTofu. Let me quickly do it. So this is my terminal. First step is to run brew update, and second step is to run brew install OpenTofu. I just updated the brew repository, so I don't have to do it again. I'll just run brew install OpenTofu. In your case, don't miss to run brew update. Okay, it says OpenTofu is installed and it is up to date. I don't have to reinstall it because it is already up to date and it is running fine. Verify the installation, tofu-version. So just like how you use Terraform, so now you will start using tofu-version if you decide to move to Tofu. What next? So I have a simple main.tf file which creates S3 bucket on the AWS. So provider is AWS, region, resource is AWS S3 bucket. I have taken this example from Terraform documentation under AWS provider. Let's see if I can use the same code or same HCL file with Tofu. I'll just change the name of the bucket. So let me just change it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Perfect. So instead of Terraform init, I will just run Tofu init. As I told you, they maintained CLI compatibility. So whatever commands that you run with Terraform, most likely they work with Tofu as well. So you can just create a simple alias also. So alias Terraform is equals to Tofu. So you can also do something like this. So if you're used to Terraform, you can just continue using Terraform CLI. Anyways, so first run Tofu init, then run Tofu plan, just like Terraform plan. So this will show you the plan. It is going to add one resource, which is typically the S3 bucket. Now I'll run Tofu apply. If you're running Tofu for the first time, I noticed on Mac, it is taking some time when compared to Terraform initialization and Terraform plan, but I think it can also be because of my network latency. Anyways, so one resource is created. Let's go to the AWS account. So this is my AWS account. I can actually see that the bucket is created. I'll also show you by refreshing. So you can see there is a bucket. In fact, there are two buckets. One was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which I just destroyed. I just created that for personal demo purpose. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, which is exactly what we created using Tofu CLI. So this means you can continue to use your existing HCL files if you decide to move from Terraform to Tofu. Of course, eventually you might have to update that because with Tofu, you can use Terraform providers, but the best practice is to use the Tofu providers. So they have a registry where they have mirror of Terraform providers and also their own providers. So eventually, in the long run, you can go to your HCL files and you can update the provider configuration. Cat main.tf. So you can update the provider configuration. Also, you can update your required providers configuration. So this is how you use OpenTofu. Now, Abhishek, should I move from Terraform to OpenTofu or should I stick to Terraform itself? Now, this is a very interesting question. And the answer is if your company is offering Terraform as a managed service, you don't have any option. You should definitely move to OpenTofu, or maybe you can talk to Terraform support. But I think the wise option is to move to OpenTofu. If you are using Terraform just to create infrastructure, it can be dev, staging, and production also. Then you don't have to move to Tofu. Tofu is doing great. It's an open source project. However, it is not that long time Tofu as a project is created. So probably you can wait and do the watch game, see how this project is emerging. Right now, they're adding great features like state encryption, which is one of the very good feature that they have added. Let's see if they're going to add many such features. And also it is important to see the open source contributors. If there are more number of contributors in the long run, then definitely there is a chance OpenTofu will take over Terraform. But for now, you can stick to Terraform. And as a DevOps engineer, whether it is Terraform, whether it is OpenTofu, you don't have to worry because OpenTofu is maintaining CLI compatibility, API compatibility, and also provider compatibility. So your life as a DevOps engineer is going to be easy even if you have to migrate from Terraform to Tofu. I hope you found this video informative. Go to the Tofu documentation and start exploring Tofu today. See you all in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.